The sun was dipping low over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, Texas, casting a warm golden glow across the 5 acres I called home. My name is James Harlan, a 53-year-old retired paramedic who traded city sirens for the quiet hum of crickets. My ranch, a sprawling piece of land I bought with my life savings and a small inheritance from my father, was my sanctuary. It was gated, private, and free from the clutches of any homeowners association. I'd made sure of that when I signed the deed 3 years ago. I spent my days tending to rescue horses, growing tomatoes and peppers in a small garden, and sipping iced tea on my porch while my dog, Rusty, sprawled out beside me. Life was slow, simple, and exactly what I'd dreamed of after a career pulling people from the jaws of death. But peace, as I'd come to learn, is a fragile thing. It started with a woman named Linda Grayson, the self-appointed queen of the nearby Pinewood Estates, a gated community about 5 minutes down the road. Pinewood was the kind of place where every mailbox matched, and the lawns were trimmed to military precision. Linda was the HOA president, a title she wore like a crown. I first met her at a local farmer's market, where she strutted through the crowd in a bright red blazer and a sash that read, Pinewood Estates President. Her voice cut through the chatter like a foghorn. "And you are?" she asked, eyeing my faded jeans and dusty boots with a raised eyebrow. "James Harlan," I said, extending a hand. "I own the ranch at the edge of Willow Creek." Her eyes lit up like she'd just found a winning lottery ticket. "The ranch? The one with the big oak barn and that long gravel driveway? Oh, I've had my eye on that place for months. It's perfect for events." I forced a polite smile. "It's not for sale, ma'am." Her smile faltered, but only for a second. "Well, we'll see about that," she said, her tone dripping with confidence. That was the first warning shot, though I didn't know it at the time. Linda's campaign began subtly. Notes appeared in the local community app. Wouldn't James Ranch be a lovely spot for weddings? Emails followed, each more direct than the last. One read, "James, I represent the Pinewood Estates HOA. We'd like to discuss purchasing your ranch for community events and upscale weddings. This would benefit everyone, including you financially and socially. Let's talk." I ignored them. Then one morning, she showed up at my gate with a glossy folder full of mock-ups me barn transformed into a wedding venue with string lights and rose arches. "I've already spoken to a decorator," she beamed. "Picture this, your property as Linda's Willow Creek events." I stayed calm. "Linda, I'm not interested. This is my home." She pouted, her red lipstick cracking at the edges. "But I've promised my daughter, Emily, her wedding here in 6 months. You have so much space." "I'm not part of your HOA," I said firmly. "I don't owe you anything." She left with a tight smile, but I could feel the storm brewing. A few weeks later, I noticed drones buzzing over my barn. The first time, I thought it was kids. The second time, I took one down with a slingshot and found a sticker, Pinewood Estates Survey. I called Sheriff Tom Bennett, who chuckled over the phone. "You've got a real one on your hands, James. Linda's been stirring up trouble with half the county." But it didn't stop. Fake HOA notices started arriving in my mailbox. Violation, rusted farm equipment visible from the road, and violation, barn does not meet aesthetic standards. I wasn't part of their HOA, so I tossed them in the trash. Then one morning, I woke to find 3 cars parked inside my gate. Linda was there with 2 men in suits, strolling across my land like they owned it, measuring distances and pointing at my barn. I stormed outside. "What the hell are you doing here?" Linda grinned. "These are my event planners. I thought if you saw how amazing it could look." "Get off my property," I snapped, calling the sheriff again. He gave them a warning, but Linda's eyes told me she wasn't done. The real trouble hit on a Tuesday morning. I was sipping coffee in my kitchen, watching my security feed, when Linda appeared at my gate in a glittering silver blouse, screaming into the intercom. "I'm the HOA president, and I demand that this man sell his ranch. We need it for my daughter's wedding." I hit the record button as she escalated, shouting, "If he doesn't agree, arrest him. He's refusing to cooperate with the community." The deputy on scene, clearly baffled, tried to reason with her. "Ma'am, this property isn't under your HOA. It's private land. You can't call 911 for this." She didn't listen. She yelled about my land being perfect for photos and community property. Then she turned to the camera and hissed, "I'll get this land one way or another." She pulled out her phone and dialed someone, demanding, "Send someone higher. I want this land seized." My stomach dropped as 2 black SUVs rolled up behind the deputy's cruiser. Rusty started barking. and I stepped onto the porch, heart pounding. Who was she calling? And what was about to happen? This wasn't just about a wedding venue anymore. It was about control, obsession, and a woman who thought she could bully her way into my life. As the SUVs parked and men in suits stepped out, I knew this was only the beginning. The spray paint on my barn glared at me like a wound. Community land. It read, the letters uneven and dripping, a mockery of everything I'd built at Serenity Ranch. My heart pounded as I surveyed the damage. The gate to the back paddock hung off its hinges, the latch sliced clean through with bolt cutters. My horses, spooked and scattered, were grazing nervously near the creek. I managed to round them up, but one, a mare named Daisy, had a cut on her leg from the chaos. Whoever did this knew how to handle animals and how to send a message. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security footage from the south pasture camera. At 2:37 a.m., the grainy video showed two figures creeping across my land. One, a young woman in a hoodie, held bolt cutters. The other, unmistakable in a satin robe and slippers, was Evelyn Harper, sipping from a tumbler like she was on a casual stroll. She pointed at the barn, gesturing wildly, while the younger woman hesitated before cutting the gate. I froze the frame, my jaw tight. This wasn't just harassment anymore. It was criminal. I drove into town that morning, a USB drive of the footage burning a hole in my pocket. Sheriff Dan Mitchell met me at his office, his face grim as he watched the video. She was on your land again, James. With an accomplice. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. This is serious. Trespassing, vandalism, animal endangerment. We're talking felonies. I slid a plastic name badge across his desk, found near the broken gate. It read, Willow Creek Event Team Volunteer, Sarah. Dan raised an eyebrow. You know her? I shook my head. But I know where to start looking. Evelyn Harper wasn't always the terror of Willow Creek. According to folks at the local diner, she'd moved to the gated community 4 years ago after a messy divorce. She'd clawed her way to HOA president by spearheading a fundraiser for decorative arches at the community entrance, then started ruling like a dictator. Citations for untrimmed hedges, complaints about mailbox colors. She thrived on control. Her daughter, Emily, was 26, engaged to a quiet guy named Tom who seemed more like a prop in Evelyn's grand plans than a willing groom. The wedding, set for 6 months out, was Evelyn's obsession, and my ranch was her prize. That evening, as I checked the horses, a beat-up sedan pulled into my driveway. A woman stepped out, mid-30s, blonde braid, clutching a dish of cornbread like a peace offering. Mr. Carter, she said, her voice shaky. I'm Sarah, from Willow Creek. My eyes narrowed. The name badge. She raised her hands quickly. I'm not here to cause trouble. I swear. I didn't know what Evelyn was planning last night. I folded my arms. You were on my land, cutting my fence. Sarah's face crumpled. I didn't cut anything. Evelyn said you'd agreed to let us scout for photos. I thought it was a night shoot for the wedding. When she pulled out the bolt cutters, I told her no. I left as soon as I could. She looked at the cornbread, then back at me. She told me to lie to the sheriff, to say we weren't there. But I can't. She's out of control. I took the cornbread, my anger softening but not gone. Why tell me now? Sarah swallowed. Because she's planning something worse. I heard her talking about taking the next step. I don't know what it means, but I'm done with her games. I'll talk to the sheriff. I nodded. Do the right thing, Sarah. I won't hold it against you. She left, and I called Dan. He was thrilled when Sarah showed up at the station with screenshots of Evelyn's texts, demanding cute barn photos and instructing her to keep quiet. But Evelyn wasn't backing down. 3 days later, 2 city planning officers knocked on my door. Mr. Carter, one said, clipboard in hand. We're here about a zoning review. There's a complaint your barn is being used for unauthorized commercial events. I stared, dumbfounded. I raise horses. I don't host events. They exchanged a glance. The complaint came from Willow Creek HOA. Until this is resolved, your barn must remain closed for a safety review. Violations could mean a $25,000 fine. I knew who was behind it. Evelyn. If she couldn't buy my land or bully me into selling, she'd drown me in red tape. That night, an email from her landed in my inbox. Subject, time's up. The message was chilling. You should have sold when I asked nicely. Now you'll beg me to take it. I stared at the screen, my blood running hot. She thought she could break me. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I hired a lawyer, Linda Hayes, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd spent decades dismantling shady land deals. This is retaliation, Linda said, flipping through county zoning codes. She's weaponizing bureaucracy. But we'll bury her in court if she keeps this up. She drafted cease and desist orders for Evelyn, the HOA board, and the city's code enforcement office. I felt a flicker of hope, but it didn't last. 2 days later, I woke to blaring pop music echoing through the trees. I stormed to the end of my driveway and froze. Outside my gate, on the county road, Evelyn had set up a full-blown photo shoot. Balloons, a wide arch, a photographer snapping pictures of a couple, Emily and Tom, I assumed. Evelyn, in a floral dress and wide-brimmed hat, directed the scene like a Hollywood producer. "What the hell is this?" I shouted. Evelyn turned, unfazed. "Just a save-the-date shoot, James. The barn makes a perfect backdrop. We're on public land, so you can't complain." I gritted my teeth. "Turn that music down. Now." She smirked. "Be polite, James. We're still waiting on that zoning review. You don't want to seem uncooperative, do you?" That was it. I marched back to my house, grabbed my old barbecue speaker, and blasted country rock so loud it drowned her out. Evelyn screeched, but her crew packed up and left. That night, my gate camera pinged at 11:02 p.m. There was Evelyn again, with a man in a venue consultant shirt, holding blueprints and pointing at my land. "Phase 1 starts here," she said to the camera. "He'll break soon." I gripped my phone, my pulse racing. She wasn't just bull, she was unhinged. Evelyn Harper's voice on my security footage echoed in my mind like a bad dream. "He'll break soon." The arrogance in her tone, the way she tapped my gate with her manicured nails, sent a chill down my spine. Serenity Ranch was my home, my father's legacy, and this woman was treating it like a prize she could snatch with enough pressure. I wasn't just fighting for my land anymore, I was fighting for my peace, my principles, and the right to live unbothered. But Evelyn was escalating, and I knew her phase 1 was no idle threat. The next morning, Sheriff Dan Mitchell called. "Got an anonymous tip," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "Someone claims your ranch is hosting illegal gatherings and storing hazardous materials." Guess where it came from? I sighed. "Willow Creek." Dan confirmed it. "She's filed a formal code violation, too. The county's sending a health and safety inspector." "It's routine, James, but she's playing dirty." I hung up, my hands trembling with barely contained rage. Evelyn wasn't just harassing Mesh, was weaponizing the system, trying to choke me with inspections and fines until I gave in. I called Linda Hayes, my lawyer, and told her I was done playing defense. "I want a restraining order," I said. "Not just against Evelyn, but anyone from Willow Creek HOA who comes near my land." Linda's voice was calm but steely. "We've got enough to make it stick. Start compiling every piece of evidence, videos, photos, emails, everything." I spent the day building a digital fortress. Every security clip, every fake HOA notice, every threatening email from Evelyn. I had the deed to Serenity Ranch notarized again, just to be safe. My dog, Rusty, followed me as I checked every lock and fence post, his ears perked like he sensed the storm coming. I was ready for a fight, but what happened next pushed me to the edge. 2 days later, I woke to the smell of smoke. I bolted outside, heart pounding, and saw black plumes rising from the east edge of my property. The dry grass near my fence was charred, the flames licking dangerously close to my barn. My sprinklers had kicked in, and a lucky breeze kept the fire from spreading, but the damage was done. The fence was scorched, and a melted plastic tag lay in the ashes. "Willow Creek Wedding Venue Planning, Section B." I stared at it, my vision narrowing. Arson. A felony. Evelyn had crossed a line she couldn't come back from. I called 911, and the fire department arrived within 15 minutes, dousing the last smoldering patches. Sheriff Dan showed up soon after, his face grim as he surveyed the scene. "Got cameras on this side?" he asked. I nodded. "South pasture. I'm pulling the footage now." He picked up the plastic tag with a pen. "This is evidence, James. We're treating this as a crime." Back at the house, I emailed the footage to Linda and Dan. The video was dark, but the glow of a flashlight caught 2 figures near the fence. One was Evelyn, unmistakable in her designer coat, tossing something into the grass. A spark flared, and the flames began. My stomach churned. If the wind had shifted, my horses could have been trapped. My home could have been gone. Linda called an hour later. "This is enough for criminal charges," she said. "Trespassing, vandalism, arson. We're filing a civil protection order and a lawsuit for damages." She's done. But something nagged at me. Evelyn was bold, delusional even, But Arson felt desperate, like she was unraveling. That evening, another email arrived, no subject, just a video attachment. I hesitated, then clicked. It was Evelyn, standing in her living room, a whiteboard covered in wedding plans behind her. She held a glass of champagne, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. Today's Emily's bridal shower, and I'm making it perfect. James Carter will regret making me look like a fool. The camera panned to Emily, her daughter, looking pale and miserable. Tell them how much you love the barn, sweetie, Evelyn cooed. Emily's voice was barely audible. I don't want to get married there, Mom. It's not ours, and he doesn't want us there. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, and the video cut off. I sat back, stunned. Evelyn wasn't just fighting Mesh, was fighting her own daughter's will. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. It was about control, about winning at any cost. Then my phone rang, an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Carter? It's Emily, Evelyn's daughter. Her voice was soft, almost broken. I'm so sorry for everything. My mother's obsessed with your ranch. I don't even want this wedding anymore. I softened. Then don't have it, Emily. You don't have to do this. She paused, her breath shaky. I tried calling it off 2 weeks ago. She threatened to fake a heart attack at the ceremony. I don't know what to do. My heart ached for her. I'm getting the law involved, I said. Stay safe, and let me know if she plans anything else. Emily whispered, she's talking about a big move next weekend. I don't know what it means, but please be ready. I thanked her and hung up, my hands tightening around Rusty's leash as I stared out at the moonlit creek. A big move? What could she possibly do next? I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, I was on my porch when I saw flashing white lights down the road, not police lights, but strobes. Then came the rumble of trucks. Through my binoculars, I saw a convoy. 3 box trucks, 2 generators, and a catering van, all parking on the county road outside my gate. Evelyn stepped out of a silver SUV, wearing a headset and carrying a clipboard like she was staging a festival. My blood ran cold. I buzzed the intercom. Evelyn, what are you doing? She smiled into the camera. Just setting up for the wedding this weekend, James. Whether you like it or not. I watched as her crew unloaded tents, chairs, and a dance floor, using my barn as a backdrop. She was staging a full-blown event on public land, banking on me staying quiet to avoid a scene. But I was done. I called Linda and said, it's time to sue everyone. Then I dialed Sheriff Dan, you're gonna want to see this. Within an hour, 2 deputies and a fire marshal arrived. They saw the blocked road, the generator teetering near a ditch, and Evelyn directing her crew like a queen. She greeted them with a smile. Sheriff, please keep the press away from the east side. We're doing first-look shots there. Dan blinked. Evelyn, are you out of your mind? You've got no permit, no crowd control, and you're blocking a public road. This is a code nightmare. She waved a flimsy paper, claiming it was a permit. The fire marshal shut her down. This is for Willow Creek Park, not here. You're done. Evelyn's smile faltered, but she turned to my gate camera and screamed, this is your fault, James. You're ruining my daughter's wedding. I didn't respond. My cameras caught every word, every violation. Linda was already watching the live feed, preparing an emergency court order. This wasn't just a fight for my land, Anna Maria, it was a fight for justice. Evelyn Harper's scream at my gate camera, you're ruining my daughter's wedding, played on a loop in my mind as I sat in my kitchen, watching the last of her wedding convoy scatter under the sheriff's orders. The trucks, the tents, the dance floor, they were gone, but the audacity of her invasion lingered like smoke. Serenity Ranch was my home, a sanctuary I'd fought for through years of sweat and sacrifice. Evelyn thought she could bully me into submission with her fake permits and hired muscle, but she'd miscalculated. I wasn't breaking. I was building a case. Sheriff Dan Mitchell and the fire marshal had shut down Evelyn's setup within an hour, citing a dozen county violations. Her photography permit for Willow Creek Park was as useless as her fake HOA notices, and the deputies made it clear, one more stunt, and she'd be arrested. But I knew Evelyn. She wasn't the type to slink away quietly. My lawyer, Linda Hayes, was already moving at full speed. We've got her, Linda said over the phone, her voice sharp with confidence. The restraining order and harassment suit were filed yesterday, but this is gold. Illegal use of public land, trespass by proxy, and a public meltdown on camera. We're going for blood. Linda submitted an emergency court order, backed by a mountain of evidence. Security footage of Evelyn's nighttime trespass, photos of the vandalism, audio of her threats, and Sarah's witness statement. Even Emily, Evelyn's daughter, had come forward, admitting she'd called off the wedding and wanted no part of her mother's schemes. I added screenshots of Evelyn's emails, including the chilling "Time's up" message, "You'll beg me to take it off your hands." By the next morning, Evelyn was served papers at her Willow Creek home. The charges were heavy: criminal trespass, attempted fraud, destruction of private property, harassment, and zoning manipulation. Linda also filed a $250,000 civil lawsuit for emotional distress and property damage. I thought that might slow her down, but Evelyn's obsession ran deeper than I'd imagined. A week later, I got a certified letter from the county zoning office. I braced myself, expecting another attack, but instead, it was an apology. The inspector had found no violations on my ranch. In fact, they praised my land management, calling Serenity Ranch a model for rural property. I exhaled, a rare moment of relief. The county dismissed Evelyn's complaint, but the victory felt hollow. She was still out there, plotting. Word spread fast in our small Texas town. Vendors started pulling out of Willow Creek events, unwilling to be tied to Evelyn's chaos. HOA members whispered about her at the diner, and I heard she'd been booed at a community meeting. Emily, meanwhile, had left for Colorado to stay with her aunt, escaping her mother's control. I felt for her. This wasn't just about my land, it was about a woman so consumed by power she'd alienate her own daughter to get it. Then came the final straw. 2 weeks after the wedding setup fiasco, I was on my porch, sipping sweet tea and petting Rusty, when a car pulled up. Not an SUV this time, but a modest hatchback. Emily stepped out, holding a small wooden box. She approached the gate hesitantly, her eyes tired but clear. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "I wanted to thank you. You didn't have to fight this hard, but you did." I walked out to meet her. "This ranch is my home, Emily. It's been in my family for 3 generations. I wasn't giving it up." She handed me the box. Inside was a polished brass horseshoe, etched with my grandfather's initials. "Mom tried to sell this at a yard sale," she said. "I saved it. It belongs here." I turned the horseshoe over in my hands, my throat tight. "Thank you," I said. Emily nodded. "I'm sorry for everything. Keep this place the way it is." As she drove away, I felt a weight lift, not just because of the gesture, but because it reminded me why I was fighting. This wasn't just land, it was legacy. The next Tuesday, Linda called me to court. "We've got a surprise witness," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. I arrived at the small county courtroom, its worn carpet and flickering lights a stark contrast to the drama unfolding. Evelyn sat at the front, rigid in a beige pantsuit, her face pale and drawn. She didn't look at me. Linda leaned over. "Ready?" I smirked. Since the first drone flew over my barn. The bailiff called Emily Harper to the stand. Evelyn's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. Emily walked in, head high, her simple ponytail a far cry from the polished bride-to-be Evelyn had paraded. She was sworn in and began, her voice steady. "My mother has manipulated people for years. She used my wedding as a weapon against Mr. Carter. It was never about love or community. It was about control." The courtroom was silent. Evelyn gasped, but the judge's gavel silenced her. Emily continued, tears in her eyes, but her voice unwavering. She lied about permits, told people James had agreed to sell. She bragged about forcing him out with pressure. She didn't care about the law, she just wanted to win. Linda asked, "Did she involve you in illegal activities?" Emily nodded. "She asked me to file a false statement with the county. I refused. That's when she started talking about visual access rights, saying if she couldn't own the land, she'd own its image." The room felt electric. Evelyn's lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. Emily's final words hit hard. "Mr. Carter never yelled at me. He defended his home with respect, even when my mother lost all of hers." The truth was out, and it was damning. The courtroom fell silent as Emily Harper stepped down from the witness stand, her words hanging heavy in the air. Evelyn sat frozen, her hands clenched in her lap, her face a mask of defiance that couldn't hide the cracks in her armor. I glanced at Linda Hayes, my lawyer, who gave me a subtle nod. We'd built a fortress of evidence: security footage, photos, emails, witness statements, and Emily's testimony was the final blow. This wasn't just about Serenity Ranch anymore. It was about accountability, about stopping a woman who thought she could bend the world to her will. The judge didn't take long to deliberate. That same day, he ruled in my favor. Evelyn Harper was ordered to pay $175,000 in damages for trespassing, vandalism, harassment, and attempted zoning manipulation. A 2-year restraining order barred her from coming within 1,000 feet of my property or contacting me, directly or through proxies. The county fined her personally for misusing public resources and abusing municipal filing systems. As the gavel fell, Evelyn stood, her lips pressed into a thin line, and walked out without a word. She didn't look at me, didn't look at Emily. For the first time, she seemed small, diminished by her own actions. I drove back to Serenity Ranch that evening, the weight of months of conflict lifting with every mile. I stood by my barn, running my hand over the spot where community land had been painted. The surface was smooth now, repainted red, the scar erased. But the lesson remained. Some people will try to take what's yours, not because they need it, but because they can't stand that you have it. I'd stood my ground, not with anger, but with truth, and it had held. The fallout for Evelyn was swift. Willow Creek HOA voted her out in a heated town meeting, where one resident reportedly shouted, "We're not your personal cult, Evelyn." The community added a new charter clause. No member shall engage in unsolicited contact with non-HOA landowners. It was unofficial, but everyone knew it was because of me. Vendors stopped working with Willow Creek events, unwilling to be tied to Evelyn's tarnished name. Emily, free from her mother's grip, stayed in Colorado, rebuilding her life. I heard she'd started volunteering at a horse sanctuary, finding peace in a way her mother never could. A month later, I hosted a cookout at the ranch, inviting the whole town. Sheriff Dan brought ribs, Linda brought peach cobbler, and even a few Willow Creek folks showed up, eager to move past the drama. Sarah, the volunteer who'd turned on Evelyn, came with a check for $2,000 to support my horse rescue. "I want to make things right," she said, and I believed her. We ate, laughed, and swapped stories under a cotton candy pink sunset. A little girl, maybe 6, sat on my hay bales, feeding Rusty scraps of brisket. Someone asked, "James, would you ever rent this place out for a wedding?" I chuckled, pointing to the girl. "If she wants to get married here someday, I'd consider it. Anyone else? They'd have to ask real nice." The crowd laughed, and for the first time in months, I felt whole. Serenity Ranch wasn't just a piece of land, it was a symbol of what I'd fought for: home, family, and the right to live free. But the fight left its mark. I learned how far entitlement could push someone, how obsession could blind them to reason. Evelyn wasn't evil, she was broken, chasing control to fill some void she'd never admit. I didn't hate her. I pitied her. But pity doesn't erase consequences, and she'd face hers for years to come. As I sat on my porch that night, the brass horseshoe Emily gave me glinting in the moonlight, I thought about the broader picture. This wasn't just my story. It was a warning. We all have something worth protecting: a home, a dream, a boundary. And there will always be someone who thinks they can take it, whether through charm, threats, or fire. Standing up isn't easy, but it's necessary. I'd won, not because I was louder or meaner, but because I'd stood firm in what was right. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to defend what's yours against someone who thought they could take it? Maybe it was a neighbor, a boss, or even a stranger. Where are you reading this from? Drop your city or state in the comments and share your story. Let's talk about standing up to bullying and injustice. Do you think it's worth the fight, or is it better to walk away? Tell me where you stand.